let's just go ahead and get this thing started. I'm Jared Sleeth with Wholster. We are a mobile app for real estate wholesalers. Our guest today is Andrew Becker with BrighterPPC. We work with Andrew a lot on lead generation. He's kind of our partner in that space. PPC is often one of those big question marks for investors. So we figured this would be a really good opportunity to bring on an expert in PPC and give us all the good, dirty details. Now, this is a 45-minute webinar, at least what we're scheduled for. So there's probably going to be a lot more that we won't be able to cover. If you have questions along the way, we've got a chat. I'll be kind of fielding questions for Andrew. If we don't get to your question, we are going to hopefully do a Q&A here at the end. And again, if we still don't get to your question, Andrew is going to go ahead and answer all the questions that we had in the chat. And we're going to send out this replay of the whole webinar via email, and also attached to that email, we're going to answer all the questions that we had today. So don't worry, we'll get to everything. And yeah, so I think Andrew, do you want to kick it off from here?
Yeah, so thank you for having me, Jared, and love our partnership with Holster. You guys rock. Really excited to be here and teach everyone how to be profitable at PPC. I know that's a really big issue in today's real estate landscape is leads, and most importantly, Jared, high quality leads. So let's start to talk about some truths and some myths and some strategy here. So my intention, you guys, is to teach you an overarching approach to this so you can get the most revenue out of this and actually make some good money and do this on repeat. So guys, the truth is that most investors, most real estate wholesalers, investors, buy and hold, buy and flip, whoever you are out there, is the truth is they want high quality leads from Google, but the real truth is it's more than just an ad campaign. Google actually, and we're going to dive into this and get a lot more detailed into what I mean by this, but the truth is that Google will reward ad campaigns and a full system, a full online approach to this. The number one mistake I see people make day in and day out is thinking that they can shortcut Google PPC, Jared. And with that, let's just jump right in.
Yeah, guys, Andrew is an expert in this. He's been doing Google Ads for 8 years. He tests every lead source that he's marketed with bandit signs, cold calling, yellow letters, pay per lead, postcards, close thousands of deals. Oh man, it's bigger. That's helpful.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, over time, he's optimized a repeatable high ROI PPC strategy through trial and error, and now he runs campaigns for real estate investors across the US for their PPC. So
Yep.
he's the guy you want.
And thanks again for having me, man. So
Yeah.
here's the promise to all of you listening on tonight's webinar, and thank you so much for putting your time in here. I know it's late. It could be late on the East Coast for some of you, but in the next 45 minutes, around 45 minutes, you'll start to really understand a PPC pathway to actual profit. What I'm trying to teach everyone is a focus framework to generate better leads, not just cheaper. We'll talk about cheaper leads a little bit later on in this workshop, but you focus on a framework with the right structure, the right tracking, and the right strategy, and that's what most people miss. So our expectations, I just want to do a little bit of setting expectations here. We'll share this workbook with you after in the follow-up email that Jared was talking about. But I would love this to be interactive. So if you have a pen in your hand and you can take notes or shoot us some questions in the chat, Jared's going to help me with that. But at the end, I want everyone on the call to leave with a clarity around what an optimized, it took me 8+ years to get to the point in my business where PPC is our number one lead gen and lead source. So what does that framework actually look like? And I'm not going to give you any fluff here. I just want to kind of get straight to the black and white facts. Jared kind of talked about this point before, but in 45 minutes, there's absolutely no way to get into the really nitty gritty, deep dive details here. My intention, everyone, is to just give the high level, like what you should be thinking about, Jared, what this looks like, what this needs to be in order to be successful. Talk about, you know, a subsequent call later on. But for right now, 45 minutes is nowhere near enough time. Each one of the topics that I'm going to talk about today could be a webinar in and of itself. So just kind of keep that in mind. But please ask questions and engage. The more you all put into it, the more value we all get out of it. So I want to also just talk about who specifically this workshop is for. This workshop is for you if you've tried or currently trying to run, but you're struggling a little bit with your PPC ad campaign. I've been there, struggled for years and years and years. Um, Also for people that are already wholesaling, investing, buying properties, and you're doing about 1 to 5 deals a month. And most importantly, you have a budget that you can allocate comfortably towards something like this. So PPC is not for the faint of heart. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You have to have a pretty sizable budget, Jared, if you want to do this repeatable and
It's true.
long-term over time.
Yeah, and a stomach. I've done PPC, and there's times where it can be challenging,
Right.
but
So,
it is the best leads.
yeah. So you have to also want a repeatable, scalable seller lead gen model, and you need to be serious about improving your business and focusing on a single lead gen source around lead quality and return on investment. So if this is you, please stick around. If even if it's not you, you can still stick around. Hopefully you'll learn something too. But let's talk about who this might not be for. So PPC is not for the beginner, right? It's not for the novice investor. So if you're brand new to real estate investing, wholesaling, or you've never even fathomed doing PPC, or you're not quite sure what PPC even is, um, it's going to be a little hard for you. Kind of going back to the budget, Jared. That's what makes it tough for a newbie to come in, or someone who's maybe still trying to figure out what they're going to do, period. This is for a more intermediate to seasoned investor who's had a lot of time figuring out the business itself at a much higher level. So kind of keep that in mind. But that also means like if you don't have a budget for it, I talk to a lot of people as well who have, $200 a month, 500 a month. You're much better starting with different types of lead gen, like mailers or pay per lead, than doing a PPC campaign. You need to have a budget. You need to be comfortable with spending that budget as well. It's also for people who don't want overnight crazy magical results. This is kind of like building equity in a house, Jared. You can't expect to close on a house on Friday and by Monday you have, 250K in equity. It just doesn't happen. I wish it did. If you know where that happens, like let me know and I'll buy a bunch of houses there. But this is again the long-term investment. You need to know that going in. Also, we say this a lot, but 50% of the job that we do or we help with is getting the actual lead, but actually working the lead and closing the lead and getting revenue from the lead is super important. And it's incredibly hard if you don't have the systems or the processes in play to actually transact on one of these leads. So if you don't have a contract, don't spend money on PPC. They're expensive leads, and you need to be able to close, right? There's an opportunity cost for squandering leads that you probably don't want to do in this model. And then the last thing is if you're looking for passive hands-off solution, this is not like, setting 20% of your paycheck to go into a retirement fund and forgetting about it. This is something that takes constant day in and day out optimization. You have to pay attention to it. You have to know what's happening, because what happens, Jared, is Google makes a change to their algorithm, or they make a change to how you can find people. Like when they went away from zip codes and different identifying criteria to just counties, as an example, that obliterated our campaign and we basically had to start over. But you have to be paying attention to what's happening in the news. It's not just in Google, it's in the world too, or the United States with market, inventories, mortgage rates. So there's a lot to this, and that's why it's not for the novice here. So let's talk about a couple or a few reality checks here. Google PPC is incredibly competitive. Depending on the market, there's typically 15 to 25 players that are bidding for spots for a Google PPC ad, Jared. We've seen as high, leads as high as $600-700 in places like San Francisco and Los Angeles and Miami. It's no joke. People will, fight tooth and nail for those spots and fight tooth and nail for the best leads out there. And competitors are fierce. We won't go into this a lot, but click fraud and bad actors are also a real thing to be wary of. Jared, um, if someone finds out that you are taking their market share in whatever market you're in, there are people out there, not saying everyone, so just be very clear about that, but there are people out there that will hire other people to type in your keywords, click on your links, and spend your money. And you need to, I'm telling you this because you need to be aware of that concept. Maybe, someone on here is not, so take that away with you. But there are also ways to combat against it by monitoring, by setting up security on your websites. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do to see an attack coming or when an attack is happening and stop it. But that's the reality of it. It's a pretty crazy out there. The next thing I want to talk about is Google is really in the business of selling clicks, not leads. So Google will, whatever keyword you're bidding on, let's say sell my house fast, Nashville, Tennessee, something like that, Jared. Google will pop 4 ads up there. Once somebody clicks on that, Google's made their money. So Google is the business of selling you clicks. And I bring this up because you want to be very careful, regardless of, if you take my advice on this from this workshop or not, um, be very cautiously optimistic, if not dismissing, of any Google uh, recommendations, because they are trying to recommend you to spend more money to get more clicks, and that's not important. That's not something we're going to talk about metrics a little bit later. That's not something that you should be too concerned about from a cost per click point of view, but just be mindful that Google wants to sell the click. But in my opinion, the world of PPC happens after the click, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. Also, a hard reality here is campaigns typically take about 60 to 90 days to mature. So at the very start of Google, when you get into Google, they don't know you, they don't trust you, they have no clue who you are. So you have to prove to them that you know what you're talking about and you're converting, and they can see you as an authority. And that takes time. Just like the equity in a home takes time, Google takes about 60 to 90 days to be like, oh, Jared just entered in this Colorado market, right? Who is he? Do we trust him? Oh, someone just submitted a lead. Cool. Let's send him more. Let's test this out. So before you can start to optimize and really start to get into that, what we call a stable state, is when you're ramping up and Google's testing you just as much as you're testing them. And then I sort of talked about this last part earlier, but a Google ad is just one piece. Your entire online ecosystem is what actually matters over time, especially if you're going to do this long term. So you need to be aware of what those components are, and we're going to hop into that as well. Okay. So when you first enter into the market, Jared, for whatever market you're in, remind me where you are.
I'm in Austin.
Okay. So I know we have a lot of people that we help in Austin, and it's very competitive. It's one of the hottest real estate markets in the entire country. And you need to come in with a plan. So this is a super important strategy tactic that you need to kind of deploy. Not something you do once, but something you constantly are tweaking and improving on. But Google, as I talked about, they evaluate your entire online presence, not just your ads. And there's 5 key elements I want to talk about. The first one is your website. So, speed of your website, the user experience or UX, security and structure and navigation are of utmost importance. So, we've actually spent the last 8 years, Jared, figuring out different strategies for even collecting information from people. You'll go to some people's sites and you'll see, click here for an offer. And it's got like, give us your name, your email, your number, tell us about this, tell us about that. And it's very overwhelming. We actually found that if you break it up into less threatening chunks of, hey, Jared, why don't you just give us your property address first? Then give us your name and your number and your email. Then tell us about your property. That all matters. If someone goes to your website and it's super slow or the mobile version sucks, they're going to bounce. And historically, what we've seen is if someone's going to your website, they're also going to 3 to 5 other websites and submitting their information there as well. So that's a super important key component. In my opinion, it all starts there. So then we talk about brand presence and authority. And this is what also takes a lot of time. Just like brand presence in other companies outside of real estate, you see their ads, you start to say, oh, well, Kia, what's that? And then you start to see, oh, they have high quality cars or whatever it is. So you do that in a very strategic way, and that helps leverage your Google PPC campaign. What do I mean by that? So Google Business Profile. On a Google Business Profile, think of that, Jared, as like the yellow pages of today's world, right? Usually, like back in the day, I don't know, I think I'm a lot older than you, Jared, but we used to have like phone books and it'd be like you'd flip through, you find a category and Pizza Hut. Oh, cool. And they might have like a photo or their address or whatever.
That
That
giant yellow brick they'd leave on your doorstep.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
now that is in the world we're talking about. I don't know, Bing has this as well, or other, search engines have it, but Google Business Profile is your online who we are, where we're located, what our store hours are. Here are reviews, written video, etc. So someone types in, jaredsleeth.com and your photo pops up on the right side of the search, right? So you get this really cool looking profile. Google wants to see that fully set up and no missing parts to it, right? Like imagine this. If you go on, let's talk about like a residential listing. I want someone to list my home and I go on and I type in John Smith, real estate agent. And his profile has a picture, multiple pictures, his address, his URL, his website URL, phone number that works, hours. Here's who we service. Here's where we service. Click here to schedule a call. And then I go to Mary Smith, and there's no photo. The website URL doesn't work. Who would you go with, A or B? You'd go with A, right? Rhetorical question.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'd go with A, Jared. You kind of look confused there, but
I had to
you
think
go
about
with
it.
like the social proof. And part of your online presence also includes, and you should bake this into your closing process, getting reviews, both written and video. That is social proof. That is other people out there in the world saying, hey, I worked with Jared and he was awesome. And it makes the sell easier on you over time. So if you want to take one really quick tactic here out of this workshop away, every time you close, no matter what, unless it goes terribly wrong, I should say, get a written review, get a video review, and have it kind of built into your SOPs. So you get those and start to collect them because those will build up over time. And before you know it, you could have hundreds of them. And you're already getting pre-sold even before, the person picks up the phone to talk to you. So that's what
Yeah, that's a great
brand
tip.
presence and authority means. And getting other people to talk about your brand is much easier than you talking about your brand. The third component here, you guys, is SEO or, content. So, do you have a strategy for posting blogs? Do you have informative pages that talk about important current stuff or happenings in real estate? Are they relevant? Are you backlinking? Backlinking is when you use another site. You pay for this, and it costs money to do. But I would backlink my site to another authoritative site, and Google likes to see that. It's kind of like brain connections happening here. So the more you can spider web out and say, "Hey, I've been on this website. I've been on that website." Google loves that. And that helps over time, Jared. If you have SEO really rocking and rolling, people are going to find you for free. organic. It's referred to as organic. And you will start to offset the overall cost per lead from PPC and SEO. So as you get free leads, it starts to offset your costs. You push people to your website with the paid, you start to get free organic ones, and over time it'll cut your, if you're doing it right, it should cut your overall cost per acquisition by about 50 to 60%. That's what we've seen. Okay, so the next is user behavior and experience. So I don't know if you know this, Jared, but Google knows what videos I'm sure you do, but what videos you watch, where you order your food from, what you're doing online and in the presence of them, and they start to see how long people have been on your website for. Time per session, what pages are getting looked at. That's all part of this scoring, the quality scoring that I'm referring to from Google's scope, right? So what we do and what you should learn to do is when you get a good lead, you actually signal back to Google and say, hey, Jared just submitted his information. This is a really good lead, Google. We want more of Jared's. So then they'll do almost like an FBI profile and say, hey, Jared researches, he's on Zillow all the time, he does this, he does that. Let's try to find more of that for Jared so he'll continue to use our services, our Google ad services. So there are ways to manually tell Google who you want and most importantly, who you don't want. So you start to really optimize your budget spend as well. And
So
then,
we've got a
yeah,
couple questions. Go
sure,
ahead.
go
Were
ahead.
you going? Okay. Steve asked about budgets and scaling. If there's any tips for scaling ads and campaigns and keeping the cost per click down, is it something to do with the setup, the audience, the location?
Yeah, budget wise, you guys, again, I sort of mentioned this, but if you're in like the hundreds of dollars every month, you're better off trying something different until you can have the amount of capital you need. We recommend not going into any new market with with less than $5,000, Jared, in an ad spend. Why that is important is because Google wants to see you spend money. Like, let's not sugarcoat it. Like, Google wants to know that you're going to spend money and a lot of money over time with them. And it's very difficult to get them to pay attention to you if you don't have the proper budget to do so. And there are some, I'm not saying that's like if you want to spend 4,500, we'd say like don't do it. But the less budget you have, you're going to go through that depending on, one of the variables is what market you're in, how competitive it is, and what the cost per lead actually is. So depending on that, a 5K budget might get you 20 leads. I have no idea. If they're $250 a lead, it could get you more than that if they're less, right? The other thing we tell people is we don't really know what we don't know until you go in and you start spending a budget to start to collect data. That's really the only way to know where you're going to end up. But then when you start to get that data, is when you can start to make plans to optimize it. Like the SEO strategy that I just mentioned. That is a way. Let's use a math equation. Let's say I spend $1,000 on Google and I get 10 leads. That's $100 a lead, right? If I start to implement SEO, Jared, and it gets me another 10 leads, so now I have 20 leads, but I've only spent from an ad spend perspective 1,000. Now you've just cut your cost per acquisition in half to $50 a lead because you offset the paid leads by the free lead. So every free lead that comes in can significantly reduce your cost overall. That's a really quick and easy example, but it takes time to get to that point. But that's where you should start shooting from. So the last part of this whole kind of like 5 key element here, everyone, is your account history matters and your spend consistency matters. So when you first start working with Google, they don't even know if they can trust a credit card that you put in. So they will start charging you random random charges, very like sporadic. There's no like rhyme or reason to it. But they'll say, hey, Jared owes us money. We're going to charge him. Oh, it went through. Cool. We're going to charge him again. Oh, cool. It just went through. Once you start to really show Google, oh, well, Jared's been around for 12 months with us now, we can start to charge his card every 2 weeks because we know him, we like him, we trust him. So those are the 5 things that you can work on. And then that's kind of a loaded question. Like there are tons and tons of other things, but if you follow this like brand presence, SEO presence, signaling back, that's how you start to get really kind of calibrated in your strategy. And then over time, you start to see that overall cost per acquisition or cost per lead come down. So hopefully that answered your question a little bit. If not, please feel free to chat us again.
Thanks
Um,
for the question, Steve.
yeah. Any other on this topic?
There's another one asking is there any correlation between SEO and paid ads in Google's brain? I mean, I guess do they see a difference?
Well, they want to see both. So if you are doing the 1-2 combination, that is what works best. So you're forcing, keep in mind, you have a website, right? That's kind of your hub. You're forcing people to your website via paid ads. So you're buying your audience at that point.
Mhm.
SEO, you're earning it. Someone's going in saying, sell my house fast, Washington, D.C. My site is popping up on the first page top, right? So there are 4 ads, then the organic SEO list starts to happen. That's called being on page 1. Someone clicks on that versus my ad, right? I'm not getting charged. So the more that can happen, they click on your page because it's the number 1 on page 1. You're getting free content. You're getting free visibility. They're clicking directly on your website. So as you can start to do all of this together and the 1-2 punch, this combination, it can be really, really powerful. So if you have to start somewhere, I would say start with PPC, but then as you have revenue coming in, start to really think about SEO because that's where you get a 50-60% decrease in your cost per acquisition.
That's pretty significant, actually.
Yeah, it does take time. Like SEO is also like equity in a house. Like you're not gonna start doing backlinking and keywords and long tail and short tail and all this stuff and then like, oh, 1 week. Keep in mind, you guys, there are people out there, your competitors that have already been doing Google PPC for quite some time, that Google knows, likes, and trusts, and have been doing SEO for quite some time. But there are ways to expedite you cutting them in line. And there's a lot of variables there too, like what their strategy is, or if they're on page 1 and they no longer want to keep paying, they might start to stop backlinking, right? They could have backlinked for 6 months straight and then just cold turkey cut for whatever reason. And that's how you start to cut them in line. But if you're not doing it, you're not doing it and it won't compound over time. That's the key. Jared, any more questions around this?
Not currently.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I've kind of talked about these 5 just as a reminder here. They are right here. I'm curious, like this is where, as you start to think through your strategy, which of these 5 do you think are the most important? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, if you want to drop it in the chat. And then if you are doing these, what do you think your weakest area is right now? So it's maybe say like important number 1, here's my weakest section. Number 2, I'm not even doing SEO. But start to think about that from here are the components of what a really optimized strategy are. What do I have? What do I don't have? This is your opportunity to like audit the 5 key elements of what you have and where you need to improve. So if you take away one thing at all from today, I'd love for you to kind of ingrain this into your minds here, but Google wants to ultimately send users to a trustworthy business. Think about the people who go onto Google to search for anything, not just real estate. If they start showing bad results or cheap products or whatever, maybe someone will start to go to a different a different search engine, right? Like a Bing or whatever. So they want quality just like you want quality. So they need to know that if someone goes to your website that they're not going to bounce after half a second or 2 seconds because it never even loaded. And your ad campaign is just one part of that whole holistic approach. The rest of your web presence must support that trustworthy business. Again, if you have 5 1-star reviews, it's going to be super hard for you to convert a PPC lead if they see that. If it says, Andrew cheated me, Andrew did this, and it's all negative, you can kind of kiss that goodbye. So your entire web presence needs to support the fact that Google needs to know that you're a trustworthy business at the end of the day. And those 5 key elements, again, right here, are how you start to get them to notice you in that light. That makes sense, Jared?
Makes sense to me.
All right, moving right along. So here is something that you can do now in your mind, or if you have your pen and paper out, but start to score and be honest with yourself. Give yourself a quality score in these 5 elements of 1 to 10. One obviously being, or maybe 0 to 10, right? 0 being I don't even have it, to 1 being, I need to put a lot more attention into it, to 10, this is the most optimized website on the face of the earth. I don't know. Be honest with yourself though. Give yourself a quality score for your website, your brand presence and authority, your SEO, user behavior. You need to also be tracking like how long people are on your site. You do that through Google Console. It's the analytics part behind the scenes. Your ad account history, and then add them all up. If you're at a 50, then you're in really good shape, and I'd love to talk to you about what you're doing. If you're anywhere, from 0 to in between that, it's important for you to know, because that's the first step of making changes, positive changes in your business. So be super, super honest with yourself. Jared, when you do this, I know you're doing it too. And if you're comfortable with sharing, drop it in the chat. If you're not, keep it to yourself. But this is where you can start to say, okay, I need to make serious changes because my website quality score is a 0 right now. I don't even have a website.
We've got a 21 in the chat.
Okay. Whoever posted the 21, if you're comfortable with sharing like the breakdown, but at least you're giving yourself the 21, right? You're admitting that you need a little bit of help. You've audited yourself, honestly, and there's a lot of room for improvement. That's the good thing. If you're at a 21 now, there's no reason why you can't get into the 30, 40, as close to 50 as you can. Kind of like repairing your credit score, right? Like there are ways to do it strategically, faster than normal, in an expedited manner. So 21's not bad. It's better than 0, right? At least you're 21 points ahead of the game.
Can we talk about what user behavior score is a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Let me roll back up here. So, Jared, what I mean by user behavior is when someone goes to Google and types in sell my, flood-ridden house in Nashville, Tennessee, 4 ads will pop up, or the SEO organic page will pop up. When they click on your ad, they go to your website. When they click on your like if you're page 1, top 1, they click on your link, they go to your website. You need to be able to track and see when I'm on your website, your Wholster website, Jared, am I going and bouncing really quick because it never loaded properly and I just gave up out of pure frustration? And then I go to your competitor's website and it's lightning fast and I get the information I need and I stuck around. Or am I staying on your website for 20 minutes? What's the average session duration that someone out in the world is on your website? What are they doing on your website? So that's what that means, user behavior. Are they submitting information to your website? You should have a CTA or a call to action on your website that says, hey, Jared, if you need help selling your home, submit your information here. And then if they submit information, that's a positive user experience. They trust you enough to submit your information. And you need to see that, right? You can see how many users visited your website in a week, in a month, like whatever time frame, right? What the average session is, what the page is. Like Google Console, Admin Console will, or Analytics, I should say, will show you like if you have 20 pages on your website, how many people spent the most time on which page? Your About Us page. Well, what made it? Why is that a popular page? I don't know. Let's look at it. But 20 people spent on an average 2 minutes on it versus everything else people spent 2 seconds on it. Why? Does it load bad on mobile? Like these are the kind of things you need to start thinking about and paying attention to and testing and pivoting from and knowing so you can better create a better user experience for whoever it is on your website. Does that answer the question? Any
I,
other questions
I
there?
think it's a, yeah.
Okay. So now that you've kind of done a rating here, let's talk about 3 metrics that you should care about when you're running a campaign. So the first one is cost per acquisition. We've done a great deal of discussion about this already, but that is how much money is it costing you to get someone to submit their information. And that can range from $20 to $800. It just depends, again, on the competition, where you are in the market in America, and how competitive that is. So cost per acquisition is different than cost per click. I'll talk about that in just 1 second, but you need to know where you're trending. If you're decreasing your cost per acquisition, which is great, or if you're increasing cost per acquisition. But one thing to keep in mind, Jared, is if your cost per acquisition is decreasing, you need to be able to find a fine line between quality decreasing as well or increasing. So we'll talk about in another second the difference between a $20 and a $200 lead. Cost per acquisition is not when someone just goes to your website, but when someone actually submits some information to you. The other super important metric to start thinking about is lead to deal conversion rate or ratio. How many leads that submit information to you are you closing? So 1 out of every 10, 1 out of every 20, 1 out of every 50. So if you're doing cold calling, for example, a good metric is like 1 out of 60, 70, 80 leads will be a good lead that you could convert, right? In PPC, you should stick to the industry standard of about 1 for 10 or 1 in 12. Again, a lot of this also depends on your ability to close and how you do the sales part of after the lead comes in. But you want to be able to know, for planning purposes, as you get really good at this, for every 10 leads that come in, we on average close 1. So if I want to close 5 deals a month, I need 50, right? Just a ratio. It's just math at the end of the day. So super important. And then average profit per deal. So our average profit when I was running our sales team was about $29,000. So if I knew the budget and the ad spend going out was X and the revenue coming in per one deal was Y, I could calculate a return on investment or a break even point very quickly to say, okay, well, if I can get one deal and I know my ratio is for every 10 leads that come in, I'm closing one and make $29,000 and I'm spending $10,000, then that pays for itself 3 times over, right? About 2.9x. So the second, the third, the fourth deal that I'm converting as well, that's just pure profit. But that's how you run and operate your business. You need to know your numbers so you can back out the math, figure out how much you need per lead, how many leads you need per deal, and then your average deal size. So you know if it's sustainable for you or not. Incredibly important. There are a lot of other metrics, Jared, in a business that we won't dive into here, but from this lead gen vehicle that we're talking about, PPC, I would focus on these if you can tomorrow. If you're running PPC ads tomorrow, one thing that I see a lot is people talking about cost per click. So for those of you not aware, I've kind of talked about this today, but cost per click, in my opinion, other people who run PPC or have done PPC might have different opinions, but in my opinion, cost per click is irrelevant. So cost per click, Jared, is again when Google makes their money. So Sell My House Fast, Washington, D.C., my ads, #1, they click on it. I just spent $200. Google's made their money. That's called cost per click. That means absolutely nothing to me if I don't get a cost per lead data point. So if I have a cost per, it's kind of like a lagging indicator, but if I have a super high cost per click, or I'm spending money, I should say, but I'm not getting leads, then you have a website conversion problem and you can start to, figure out why. And we spent time talking about speed, user experience, etc. So there are ways to figure out why. But the only thing that matters is if you get leads submitting information. I just want to be super clear about that. So having clicks, the cost per click number is irrelevant, I should say. The fact that people are clicking on your ad and not submitting information is the more relevant part of that. So you have some sort of a conversion problem on your website that you need to really dial in to fix that problem ASAP. So the truth is, you guys, if you're not tracking your numbers, you're completely flying blind, and it's incredibly hard to strategize and optimize a campaign like this if you have no clue where your spend is going, what revenue is coming back in, how many deals it takes. And let's really quickly not forget about the difference between the $20 and $200 lead comparison that I mentioned earlier. So there's a volume play that comes into the picture when you're kind of opening the floodgates and saying, hey, Google, Jared, I could go into your Austin market and say, Google, send me everybody that types in home, right? That could be a keyword. And I could get 500 leads and pay $20. I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. I have $20 leads. This is great. But you're filtering and sifting through 400 or 500, 200 even, 300 even, because you're opening up you're turning on the faucet and saying, Google, just give me volume. All I care about is volume. But be careful with that because over time, you're going to burn out if it's just you, Jared, having to try to track down hundreds of leads each month. My opinion is I'd rather spend $200 for 10 leads and spend 2 grand than $20 per lead for 200 leads, right? Because there's a higher quality metric there. So our strategy is to go after the quality lead. And then I mentioned this earlier, but as you start to get your cost per acquisition down, you really need to start to pay attention to the quality of the lead coming in as well. Because if you get a really well thought out campaign and it starts to drop below a certain threshold and the quality starts to degrade, you might be better off and are better off spending a little bit more money tightening up your campaign and saying, hey, don't just send us everyone that says home, send us home, fill in the blank, fill in the blank, fill in the blank. And you start to get very hyper specific with the keywords that you want. So overall, the point here is a lot of investors we see will try to optimize for clicks and the lead volume coming in. So they just want leads. They just want leads. But what you really want to do is focus on the quality aspect of it. And for those of you who do it yourself, there's the burnout. But think about if you have a team doing this as well. So, Jared, if I hired you as my ISA or appointment setter, and I was giving you hundreds of Google leads, like 4, 5, 6, 10 a day, and you were sifting through them, like over time, that snowballs on top of each other. And before you know it, you have 2,000 leads that are new uncontacted because you can't get a hold of them, right?
Yeah, that's a
You're going to
lot.
be like, dude, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. We used to do that with a Facebook campaign that we tried. We got like 500 leads. And even if we got them on the phone, for the most part, it was like, I didn't submit my information, but when we did set an appointment with them, our acquisition people didn't even want to go on them because of how bad they are. Not saying all Google leads like that, like at the $20 level will be horrible, but we start to see a very, very big difference between lead quality when you start to get that low. So spending more is sometimes better in my humble opinion here. Okay, so this is something that you can do, on your own time, but start to write down and benchmark where you are today if you're running PPC. What is your cost per acquisition? What are you currently paying for lead? What is your deal ratio? If it's 1 in 80, then maybe it's a systems processes type of thing that you need to, tighten up. So there's different indicators that you can see here. And then what your average deal size is. But when you can really dial that in, you guys, that's when it really starts to get fun. Like the example I said before, if I want to close 100 deals or 10 deals, you just work the math out and you say, hey, I need to spend $1. For every $1 I spend, I get X return. And then it gets really, really fun because it's data, right? You're trending kind of like this up and down all the time because of different environmental, political, mortgage rate, like all those different variables out there. But when you start to track this appropriately, you can start to get ahead of the downs, take advantage of the ups, and it gets really fun because you have consistent lead flow and you know exactly what you're spending and what should be coming in based off of tangible data. So think about, 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, when you've been running PPC, what that can feel like in your mind, what that would do for you, both from a business point of view and a personal point of view as well. Does that give you the freedom to go and do other things that you might not have been able to do before you had a lead gen vehicle like this?
Andrew, I got a question. About a year ago, I was running a PPC campaign. And if you remember, so this was late 2024, we had election season, right? How does that affect Google? We saw what seemed to be a huge drop in leads around that time, what we suspected was due to all the money coming into Google from political campaigns. And I was just curious to get your thoughts on that.
I mean, I wish I had like that crystal ball to give you a really like dialed in answer. My guess would be is a lot of people were holding off. I have this experience from our residential side of the business that we ran, but it kind of bleeds into the investor side too. But I could take a guess that I'm gonna wait until after the election to decide what I want to do. So when there's an election, it's kind of like in real estate around Thanksgiving and Christmas, like, oh, you get on the phone with all your leads and they're like, after the new year, after the new year, after the new year. When an election happens and like presidential is every 4 years, obviously, we see that as well. I'm gonna wait to see if the administration is gonna change before I do anything. So that's what I would expect that answer to be.
Okay, interesting.
I could be wrong though. What do I know, right? All right, so here is your kind of takeaway here. If you really want to start building out your roadmap to an optimized campaign, 4 steps. Simple here. Audit your 5 key elements. Be really honest with yourself again. Step 2 is lock in your metrics. Those 3 important metrics. Write them down. That'll be your benchmark. Write down 24th of September 2025. Here's my 3 metrics if you're running campaigns. Then choose your metric where you need to improve the most. So if your cost per acquisition is like $800, maybe we should talk. But there should be one that stands out to you where you can start to deep dive. Like if your conversion rate is 1 in every 50 leads or 1 in every 80, remember the benchmark for PPC leads should be about 1 in every 10 or 12 leads, maybe 15, right? But your conversion rate should be around there. So after you look at your 3 key metrics, say, oh man, this one's kind of high. Let me see what I can take, positive steps of what I can take to get that down. And then write down your 3 tactical actions that you can do between now and the next 90 days in order to accomplish that. Some really, there's a million examples here, but an example list is right here. So if your website's super slow, maybe you invest in it and you pay someone to optimize it so it's lightning fast. Start to get videos, testimonials written, etc., for that Google business profile and social proof. Start to test different variations of your keywords, or look at your CRM. Another part of this, like that latter 50% of the conversion part, is where are your leads going, Jared, after you get them? They should be going to you for that speed to lead, like instantly talking to them, but are they also going into your database? And what's happening inside your database? Are you putting them on a touch plan that will send a text, send direct mail, send an email, remind you to call them? That is important too. So maybe that's part of your takeaway from here. Just looking at your systems and your processes. So as you start to get leads in the door, that you're not, losing them in the, cyberspace abyss. So those are again 4 really quick and high level examples, but start to think about that and always, always, always go back to your metrics to see where those lagging indicators are so you can make some progress. So write down, we'll share this work. I don't know if I mentioned this, but we'll share the workbook with everyone after this, Jared, so they can print it out or, make a copy of it and start to write in it and write down their steps, and you can keep this. If you want to share your action step in the chat, please feel free to do that. What's your number one action step that you want to take? So I know we're kind of going a little bit over, so we'll wrap up here. But what we just covered, you guys, is who this system is built for, the type of person or business you want to run. We went over that in great detail. You learned what Google looks for beyond just the typical ad campaign. It's the website, user experience, your business profile. A lot of that goes into this success or failure of a campaign like this. You know now 3 key metrics to track and to set as a benchmark starting today if you're running ads. And you built a starter plan, right? You're not going to be able to solve this on a 45-minute webinar tonight, but you got to take the first step. So you should hopefully have at least somewhat of a starter plan to start taking action and improving your lead gen here. So you learned what most investors never really do, you guys, numbers backed PPC strategy. Again, it all goes back to the math. If you understand your math, you can be quite successful here. You have everything to move forward on your own, and if that's all you came to learn, then like thank you so much. I really enjoyed being able to teach you. You're ahead of a lot of most people out there that are just trying to, you know, get to the end of the transaction and make some money with no real strategic oversight. I hope you all take super massive action today. But if it's cool with you and you want to speed up your progress, Jared, I hope I can share this with everyone. Avoid the mistakes that I made. Is it cool, Jared, if I share just 3 ways that I could potentially help here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So 3 really easy ways to go from here. So you can do it yourself. I'm gonna provide this workbook again and some resources that I'll talk about in just 1 second. You can go out and do it on your own. Perfectly cool. Like I did it and tried to do it on my own as well. But I learned a lot from that experience. It also took me about 8 years to learn. You can do it with us. Again, I run a PPC agency for investor wholesalers around the country where we can guide you, coach you, help you in any way you want and support your execution of it. Or if you have the budget, you have, you just want to focus on leads, we can actually do everything that I just discussed for you. We can talk about what that looks like if we connect after this with whoever wants to connect. But we can white glove this and set it up, maintain it, and run it for you essentially. And all you would need to do is work the leads and close the deals and make money. So, regardless, if you don't choose any option here or you choose one of the options, we're going to share with everyone. We put together a 23-page PPC campaign architecture blueprint, Jared, where it literally walks you through the actual campaign setup itself with keyword strategy, learning what the different types of keywords are. There's actually quite, there are a lot of nuances there too, but we'll share this with all of you, regardless whether you ever talk to me or see me again. We'll give this to everyone on the call today. If you are curious and you want to chat with me, whether you want to take full control yourself, you want guided help, or you just want us to do it for you, you still have that high level understanding of what makes a great campaign. But if you want to chat with me, and you want to, just have a discovery call, free 15-minute discovery call with me. There are kind of 2 ways, Jared. If anyone, listening here, scan the QR code, get on my calendar, or that's my personal cell phone number. You can shoot me a text and I will respond. Just let me know, this is from the Wholster webinar that we were just on. And I'm more than happy to set up a time to chat with you to answer any follow-up questions you might have later on, or to take a look at your campaigns yourself and we can give you some advice on how to make it better, to all the way to just setting this up for you if that's the decision that you make. So that's everything I had, Jared. Thank you for those still here and listening, and thanks again, Jared, for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew, thanks for sharing. This was super informative. PPC is an elephant, right? So I think you really helped kind of break down what it is, what are the important things to look at in your campaigns when you're building them. So now we're going to do a Q&A here just for a few minutes. If anybody has any additional questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. And then otherwise, if I don't see any questions, I guess we're just going to go ahead and wrap up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we miss any too, like I mentioned earlier, we'll download the chat and I'll answer any and all of them. And then as part of our, follow up with you, we'll provide a link to the recording, Q&A session with all the questions answered, and then that free workbook. So you can kind of take this and run with it.
Awesome. Andrew, we appreciate that. And thank you again for joining us on the webinar.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man.